Hi Quiltytube, I hope all's well. My name is Kirsty, Crafting Kirsty, here on YouTube and on Instagram. This is Quiltytube number 2 and it is Tuesday the 5th of April 2022. So I hope you are well. If this is your first time here, this is a video about my quilting endeavours and future plans, because we always have lots of future plans. If you're new to my channel, I have some videos about my cross stitching, and I have Craftytube as well, which covers crochet, knitting and various other things I attempt to learn to do. And I think videos 1 to 8 include everything, and at that point I start to separate them out. So, hello. I last filmed, I found out, on the 3rd of October 21, so 6 months ago essentially. I knew these were going to be sporadic. I hadn't meant for it to be quite so they hadn't meant for there to be quite so much time in between these. And sadly enough, I don't actually have huge amounts of finished quilts to show you. I will go through the 4 quilts I think I talked about the most in my last video, and the progress or non-progress that's been made on those. And then I will show you the other things that I've started, done, finished, that have obviously taken me off track of my original 4 quilts. So here we go. The first quilt, which I think I had finished the last time I filmed, is just this very, very simple half square triangle quilt. I had said I was going to put a border. It's absolutely huge. I'm not going to open it all out. It's just all these sorts of lovely sort of neutral, easy on the eye fabrics. I had said I was going to put a border on that. I eventually found some border material that I thought would go very nicely. And then A, I didn't want to cut into it because it was so nice. And B, I put it back on our bed, and it is quite large. So I'm just going to, I think I'm just going to back it. I might put a set, rather than putting batting in it, I might put just a sheet, sandwich it with a sheet rather than sort of batting. And I'm going to tie it because it's such a big size quilt that I'm going to struggle to get it through my machine. I'm just going to tie it. It's just going to be for our bed. So yeah, that's in exactly the same state as it was the last time I filmed. But at least I have a new plan now. I have a new idea of what I'm going to do with it. I think the second quilt I'm going to talk about is my Kathryn Kerr Etoiles Rouge quilt, which is, she has a website, various quilts, some of which are free, some of which you pay for. It's a really good website with lots of hints, tips, techniques, the full shebang. So initially I started doing her 365 day quilt, where you get a block per day. Couldn't keep up with it, went hideously wrong with it, so stopped. And then last December I signed up for this Etoiles Rouge, which is a block a week. So essentially I started it in January of 21. Should have been finished January of 22. It still isn't. But I'm going to make a concerted effort to get this one finished now, and you'll see why later. I knew I had a label somewhere. So this is basically a sort of 49 blocks of, I think it's an Ohio star, or it's just basically they're all star blocks, varying variations of star blocks. And it's 7 by 7. And I've managed to, try and screech back a bit. So I've got the second row on, put together. I had an awful trauma with the sashing when I first started this, which I won't bother to go into again, but oh God, it was beyond a joke, the sashing. Anyway, so I've put those 2 rows together. I'm now on to row 3. Spot mistake. So there we go. So I think I've got 2, 4, so I've got another 2 blocks to put on there, and then that'll be that row complete. I've had a couple of quilty days. I do 2 days a month, one on the last Thursday of the month and one on the first Monday of the month. And so obviously they're quite often combined within the 7 days. And a lot of the ladies overlap between the two groups. But it's sort of a full out 5 hours with a break for lunch of quilting, if you wish. And I spent this last Thursday, I spent cutting out a whole load of blocks. Because that can actually take as long as piecing the blocks together. So cutting out pieces, and then I spent the Monday starting to put rows together and obviously making more blocks. So I think it's 7 by 7, so I'm halfway through row 3, 14 months later. I do like it. I like it when I get going with it. Yeah, and I'm going to make it, that is now my focus quilt for the next few weeks. Really want to get that one finished. Then going to move on to my dear Jen from Jen Kingwell. And I had a bit of trauma with this one. And then of course I've put it away, and now I've pulled it back out. It's not as bad as I remember it being. But I really haven't made much progress with this at all. So let me show you, so you've got, comes in a booklet. And in the booklet you get the templates to cut out and all the instructions. That is the quilt on mess. It's all hand pieced, some applique as well in here, but yeah, it's all hand pieced, and it's 72 blocks in total. So essentially you make one and then you repeat it 3 times, and she differs between light background, dark extras, or dark background, light extras. They're not called extras, I can't remember, whatever. And then some of them, as I've done here, all the fabrics are the same. And in some of the blocks, all the fabrics are different. So that is essentially what I'm copying, the dark to light, the light to dark, and whether it's all the same fabric across all 3 or whether the fabrics vary. And so that is the only part of the colour scheme for this that I'm copying. I'm using lots of scraps. I have bought lots of fat quarters, just sort of paired things up and picked them up. Every time I go into shop, I always buy a couple more fat quarters just to go with it. Anyway, I had made, so I've already shown this one, had made that one. I had made that one. And then I moved on to this one. So let me bring this off a bit closer. So, as you can see, I'm having to sew around a curve on this. Now, I struggle with that quite a lot. I did think that hand piecing it would be a bit easier because I could be a bit looser with the thread, which would give me a bit more ease to go around, to sort of stretch it out and go around the corner with. I am actually pleasantly surprised, having got this back out this morning. I was like, oh, it's really, I built it up in my head that I was going to have to redo the whole thing, and it was just absolutely dreadful. Actually, that's not too bad. My only slight concern seems to be that if you look between these 2 blocks, there is quite a size difference between this one and this one. But the 1/4 inch line on the back still seems to run along. So I don't know quite what I've done there. But I think I probably will leave that. I was thinking I was going to have to redo them. I thought they were that bad I was going to have to redo them. But for the moment, they will do. I might revisit later. And then I had an absolute nightmare with the next block. And I think the problem was that I did the templates, cut all the templates and the fabric out, and then left it for about 4 or 5 weeks. And then when I went back to it, I'll show you in this one. So then this is essentially the block. So when I went back to it, it is these 2 smaller triangles, and these are very similar sizes. And then these, if you haven't cut them quite right, or if you haven't reversed them, then they're wrong. And I think I took this to one of the quilt groups, because I hadn't really got anything prepped, and I thought I'll just grab this and take it with me because they're already cut. And it took me an entire morning, it took me an entire 2.5 hours to piece the first one, because I kept on getting these triangles mixed up, and if they weren't mixed up, I'd put 2 reverse ones instead of 1 forward, 1 reverse. Oh, it was just, steam was coming out of my ears. Anyway, I eventually got it done. I then made this second one, and it's this second, and again, this second one, I haven't ironed these back properly, the corner bits, you'll have to excuse this. I'm really struggling with this centerpiece here. Can you see how much fabric there is left there? And it just will not sit flat coming out. I'm just, I don't know what I've done. And then the third block, I think I took it again for one of the days, along with some other stuff, and I started to do it, and I'd realised I'd forgotten to cut out 2 or 3 pieces of fabric anyway, so I couldn't finish it. So at that point, I threw a real temper tantrum about it. Yeah, I'm going to have to. I can't have that. It's just, I don't know why, it just won't. It's these bits here. Oh, it's this piece here. I don't know. So I'm going to have to redo those. Some of these blocks, because I think there's actually only 69. I know some of them you have to repeat to get the same size. Some of these have to be repeated. So if I continue to struggle with this block, I might well drop it and just repeat another block that isn't repeated within it. And the other thing I did wonder, although it doesn't say anything about this in the book, is that I have, so the way that she's ordered the blocks, as you go through, the way that she's ordered the blocks is not the layout of the quilt. So I've started thinking, so I sort of thought, well, I'm just going to work my way across each row and then keep on going across in rows. And I do wonder if actually she's laid it out in the book that it is slightly easy. I don't know if it's easier, or if you just, once you've done a few more blocks, this shouldn't be so much hard work. I don't know. I think what I'm going to do with this is find some easier blocks, do some applique, get a bit ahead of the game with it, and get a bit more enthusiastic about it. I still like it, and I enjoy doing the hand piecing. I don't know why I'm struggling with this block so much. So yeah, I will keep on slowly working on that. I mean, it's a slow process anyway. By the time you've cut out the templates, cut out the fabric, yeah, it takes quite a while, because some of these have quite a lot of pieces in it. And the other piece with this one is I've got 2 bags, dark and light. And for the first couple of blocks, I was pairing up my scraps. It's supposed to be a scrappy quilt, pairing up my scraps. And that was taking me as long as cutting everything out and sorting everything out. I thought, no, you've got to stop. This has got to stop. You've just got to pull whatever out of the bag and use it. Not sure I can cope with that. I like scrappy as long as it's a little bit controlled, and that is just a little bit. I think, yeah, that's just not a successful block. But anyway, apart from that, I really, really enjoy it, and it will slowly, very slowly get done. So the 4th quilt, and I have had a disaster with this, 4th quilt that I was working on last October, that, you know, theoretically I should have had finished by now, is the Dancing Chickens and Flying Pigs from Hatched and Patched. And these were all individual pieces put together, a lot of wool applique, embroidery, really, really good fun. But I've had so many issues with it. I've still only finished the first one. So I'll show you the first one, and then I'll tell you exactly where I've gone wrong on all of it and what my idea was. And then you see what you think. So this is the first, sorry, it's not ironed. So this is the first block. It's really cool. I love it. I enjoy doing it. The first time, or for the pigs, I wasn't blanket stitching, but I was sort of going around the edge stitching. I can't remember what that's going to be called. I was doing that, and that was very hard work. And then if you see on these sort of flower buds there, I've literally just done a running stitch 1/4 of an inch in or less, because this sort of thing, this is going to go on the wall. It's not going to be used as a quilt, so it won't get washed all that often, and even if it does fray a bit, it'll be fine. So my issues with this start at the very beginning. So I had a massive piece of calico that I bought, and then you have a template. Let's see if I can quickly flash one at you. Let's see. Right, anyway, so this big piece of paper with a template on it. As you can see here, there are 2 borders that go round. Not going to be able to copy much off here anyway, but just in case. There's 2 borders that go round. So that is your inner border, and that is your 1/4 inch seam, because you cut out all the blocks at 10 by 14 or whatever they are, do the work on them, and then sew them all back together again. And I managed to, I think I just traced straight over the top of it, straight onto the calico. And I've managed to jump between the 2 lines. So essentially, I've got a wonky border. So you can see here, and then when I placed it back over the template to work out what, so you can see here my pear's going off at a slightly angle, and yeah. And then here, this side, because I didn't really realise I'd done it until I got to this point, these are actually over the 1/4 inch seam line. So they would essentially end up being stitched into the seam. Yeah, can you see how wonky it is from here actually? It just goes off on a slant. So I thought, I'm going to have to do it again. Another issue I've had with it is with this wool applicator, I've been using heat and bond. So I trace the outline onto the heat and bond, iron that onto the back of the wool, cut it out, and then I go to iron it onto the calico. And of course the wool's so thick that the heat doesn't get through properly to properly adhere it to the back of the calico. And occasionally it's slipped, they've slipped, or I've tried to turn it over and do it from the back and it's slipped out of place. So they're not quite where they're supposed to be, although they don't actually look too bad. It is more the borders that's the bad part. And then I built it up more in my mind. But having pulled it out, I don't dislike it actually. You're supposed to use Valdani thread for this, for the embroidery of the words. I didn't have any, but I've got an awful lot of one particular anchor thread. So I decided to use that, and I'd used 3 strands to make it stand out enough. And I wasn't particularly enjoying it, and I didn't think it looked that good, but actually it looks better than I remember it looking, but it was still hard work. So I can either restart the whole thing, make sure the outline is actually square on the fabric. I thought for the stitches are fine, so I thought for where I have to applique on the wool and the heat and bond isn't going through, I might use a bit of, I think, is it 505 spray I've got for the, so when you baste a quilt, I might spray a bit of that onto it. At least then it's stuck into place. I can flip it over, iron it from the back, and hopefully that'll keep things more in place. And the last thought I had was with the writing, although it's not as bad as I remember it, I did think I might use these. So these are Derwent Inktense ink pencils. So they are essentially crayons. So they look a bit like them. Actually, I'll see if I can show you the whole tin or not. So they just look like that. Lots of lovely colours. And what you just So with the writing, I would just write with the correct colour that I wanted to use, and then you take a paintbrush and a small bit of water and you go over the top of it, and it turns it more into, it looks more like it's been painted, but it also makes it colour fast. I'm not explaining this very well. You want to look them up on YouTube. And now I bought these about 5 years ago to show with a friend, and I only pulled them out this February because when we bought them, they were saying you had to have a stamp to stamp the outline, you needed aloe vera to go around the edge to stop it bleeding out into the fabric. And I've got tubes of aloe vera in my quilting cupboard, because every time I saw it I thought, oh, I must pick some of that up in case I ever use those pencils. And I was thinking about it for Valentine's Day actually. I was thinking, oh, I might have a go and see if I can just draw some hearts or do something random with it. And I looked it up online to remind myself how to use them. No, she didn't use a stamp, she didn't use the aloe vera, she said it's absolutely fine. So I did exactly as I've just described. I literally drew the outline of the heart, coloured it in, went over it with the water, and it looked absolutely fantastic. And I did think I would do that with the writing, but actually I don't dislike the writing. So I could either do, as I said, restart it all, or I could add some strips onto the edge to try and square it up a bit and then carry on. But then I think that'll make it bigger than all the other ones, and all the other ones are, they all are a uniform size. You can't see it very well there. So I don't know, but whatever, for the moment, this one is going away. I'm going to probably pull that back out after harvest time. I think I want to get I want to get various things finished, completely finished, done and dusted. I've got a new block of the month that I'm starting. And so I still love it. I still want to do it. I've got a Christmas version of this, Father Christmas and his reindeer. You know, and I really do enjoy doing it. But having made such a balls up with the first one, I need to decide what I'm going to do. And that can just go on the back burner for the moment and wait. We shall see. But yeah, so give me your opinions. Should I just add some strips and try and square it up and just have the first block as a bit bigger? Or should I start again? And if I start again, should I try using my Inktense pencils? Because I really ought to, having bought them 5 years ago, actually put them to use. So those were the 4 main projects. Yes, those were the 4 main projects I've been working on in October that obviously I was going to get finished and have to show you that didn't happen. So why didn't that happen? Well, the first thing that came up is my Alice in Wonderland quilt. Now, I think in August, I think I would have shown you this fat quarter bundle on my last video. I bought from So Hot UK, shop here in England, fat quarter bundle of Curiouser and Curiouser by Tula Pink. Now, I don't dislike Tula Pink's fabrics, but they're not normally what I would gravitate to because they are there, you can't miss them, and they are so obviously spottable. That's a Tula Pink fabric from a mile. But I absolutely fell in love with, because I love Alice in Wonderland, and I absolutely fell in love with this fat quarter bundle. So I bought it, and in the back of my mind, I had this plan of how I was going to turn it into a quilt. And then when I actually pulled it out again and looked at it, and I thought I might want to start doing something with that, I realised my initial plan wasn't going to work. In between buying it, realising my plan wasn't going to work, I had watched Nicole of Nicole's Needlework, who has got into quilting big time within this last year, and she was showing off a quilt that she had done using Crazy Quilt Paper by Lori Holt of Be In My Bonnet. So I've obviously used the paper to make this quilt, but I did buy a second, so you can buy 2 different sizes. So let me show you. So that is the 5x5, which actually comes out as 3.5 by 3.5 when you trim it up. And get a piece out quickly. I bought the 10 by 10, which comes out at 8.5 by 8.5. but that's essentially what you get. So you iron this onto your fabric, cut out those pieces, and then mix them all up and stitch them all back together, basically. And so that is what I did with my Alice, and I have finished this. I haven't obviously fully finished it. Is that the top? Yes. So, it's not ironed, I'm sorry, I'll have to excuse me. So I've basically got 8.5 by 8.5, and I've just taken all my fabrics. This is quite a good. Cut them all out. Stop them on the paper, cut them all out. The only ones I did fussy cut were Alice. So you had a fat quarter, we had a couple of fat quarters with sort of 3 or 4 of Alice's head on it, and the Queen. Again, you had a couple of fat quarters with those. So I did fussy cut those because I wanted to specifically make sure that we had their entire faces and heads in there, because they really are. And then the rest of it, as you can just see, is just repeats of all of the different background colours. Teacups, those are upside down there, but it doesn't really matter. So I have to say, these were absolutely fantastic. They were great fun. I used, so in the fat quarter bundle, you got a couple of fat quarters of this, the hearts, the playing card shapes on white or cream, and you got it on the purple. So I ordered a couple of meters of each to use as sashing and binding, and I've still got lots left. So this is 1, 2, 3, 5 by, I think I've got 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yes. So 5 by 7, and I've still got at least half, with the exception probably of the Alice and the Queen, because I fussy cut those. I've still got a full, well, I suppose a fat eighth of each fabric left. And I've got a couple of meters of I did overbuy on these, but I'd rather overbuy than underbuy because it was going quite quickly. So yeah, so really a fat quarter bundle really does work out to be quite, efficient's the wrong word. I wouldn't say economical because they're not cheap to buy. I think I bought mine, it was in a sale and it was still 130 odd pounds. And fat quarter bundles vary depending on how many fat quarters you get in it, but I've got a lot. I've got a big single quilt out of it, and I've got more than enough fabric left to make another proper single-sized quilt out of it. So actually it's not that expensive when you look at it that way. I quite like buying the fat quarter bundles because everything goes together. That hard job of, you know, does this fabric match with that fabric is all put together for you. And yeah, and probably fabrics I wouldn't have bought if I'd just seen them all on the bolt. I would have thought, I'll just leave that one, I'll leave that one, I won't bother with that one. You know, they do come through in the fat quarter and they are nice and they do add to it all and, you know, bring it all together, I suppose. So I'm just going to pull a string, just wait, pull a string and the whole thing's going to fall apart. No. Anyway, so that is my, have I got anything else? Oh, I have a cunning plan. I have a cunning plan to quilt this. I don't know whether it's going to work or not. I have this idea that on the back I would just like to put plain, probably cream fabric, and I would like to just write various phrases from Alison, like, you know, sort of a I'm late, off with her head. Is it called the Dodo Race? Yeah, various phrases from it, and just with probably a long stitch, just quilt it almost with a running stitch, so those are on the back. But that sounds like quite a lot of work, so we'll see. But yeah, so if you're a beginner quilter I don't think these aren't out of the way. To buy a pack of these, you get 42, I think I had in mine. Yes, 42. So you get 42 individual papers in here. I had 42 obviously in my 10 by 10, which comes to 8.5 by 8.5. Very simple to use. Yeah, just really good fun actually. It's good fun. I certainly think that's the sort of thing I will always have in stock, because it just, you know, what do I do with this fabric? I know, I'll use the Crazy Quilt paper. So yeah, so that's the rest of the Alice. So that is a fully completed top. It just needs everything else doing to it. So that was the first thing that distracted me from my 4 main quilts. And you have to excuse me, I'm just reaching across here now. And then the next thing I decided, I can't remember who I had been watching, but obviously I'd been watching somebody and they were discussing table toppers. And I thought, oh, that sounds good fun, because it's a good, easy way to decorate, add some colour to the room, and it doesn't take as long as a full quilt. And it all got a bit out of control because I had bought an autumn panel at a show that we had gone to. Well, I had 2 autumn panels, so this is one of them. You'll have to excuse the cut piece missing out of the middle of it. And then I had a second one, which, oh, sorry, this is all a bit of a mess, but you get the idea. An autumnal panel. And then I had a second one, which had various things. You'll see the rest of them, but these sort of things on them as well. And I thought, right, I then went round, oh, I need at least 8 table toppers. I need a table topper behind me, one from the chest over there, coffee table. And I tried to do them all at once and it all got a bit out of control. I did finish this first one, which is going on to our, well, it's not fully finished, which is going on to our coffee table in the lounge during autumn time. So this is one, I think that's probably the piece that's missing out of the fabric I was just showing you before. And then, oh, you've got some upside down pumpkins. Oh, everything's, right, let me work this way around it. No, because they all face outwards, obviously. So we've got some pretty houses with pumpkins. Pumpkin scarecrows and crows. The word autumn, I hope. This is an upside down and inside out view. And then just some pretty pumpkins lines on the outside. And then I used some of the fabrics I had bought or found. And I picked the old Italian block out of the Kim Deal and Jo Morton Simple Friendships. So that's a book I have. And in it they have, try and cover something up, sorry, cover that up. There's a picture of the quilt, and I really like these blocks here. And so I use those just to go around the outside with it. So there we go. So as you can see, I still haven't properly finished it yet, because I think by the time I'd actually finished it, it was coming up to winter and Christmas. But that will get done for this autumn, and I've got lots of other bits of fabric and autumn colours and panels and whatnot to use. So I will slowly get around. I think that's then what happened, is this is just getting silly. Rather than trying to do 8 table toppers in one go, get one little area with a table topper, some cross stitch on it, you know, some trim ornaments, or just have one display, get that sorted and move on to another area. So with that in mind, oh no, sorry, we're going back to autumn. The one thing I did do very quickly was, this was just a piece of fabric I had. And so I just left it whole, put a dark green border on it, and then bound it with some of my autumn fabric. And on the back, I used a old duvet cover to back one of my quilts with, and I still have some bits left over, so I just used that for the back. You can see the blue ink stains from when I was a child in my bed writing with my blue pen, and obviously didn't put the lid back on. And then I just very simply quilted it like that. So it's really pretty, so I'll bring it up a bit closer. So it's just lots of sort of woodland animals, autumn colours, very pretty. So that goes onto one of the tables. But yeah, so that's that. Those are the autumn. So I've got more autumn ones to come, but I've got quite a few months to get those done. Following on from that theme, I then decided to do one for February for Valentine's Day. We don't really celebrate it particularly, but I thought one nice red and white tabletop will do. So I just picked out of my stash various reds, some batiks, and just with the white. Very simple pattern, very easy to do. I was using up white on the back. I think I've also used the same white on white for the binding. Now this, yeah, so this is where it's changed. So this one has batting in it, so it's a bit squishier, a bit bigger. Nice. This one I used iron-on interfusible. Is it interfuse facing or? I can't remember the name of it now. I will write it down below, I'm sorry. But it's essentially like quite a thick tracing paper, and you iron it on, it stabilises. But there's a stabiliser or an iron-on interfacing. There are various different types. And I'd ordered some because a friend of mine in one of the quilt groups had finished her Lucy Boston quilt. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I said, well, can I have a look? And I sort of was holding it, and I was like, oh my God, it's really, really heavy. And she said, oh, yes, it is. And I said, oh, you haven't quilted it yet? And she said, no, I'm not going to. I've just ironed on this interfacing, and I've turned it into a coverlet. She said, because that's what it was originally. She said, that's what I've decided to do. So I bought some because I thought, well, I'd like to give it a go, see what it's like. And I was thinking about that, my big half square triangle quilt, because I thought that'd be a lot easier than trying to baste all of that. And I've used it on this, and it's great. It has a bit of, I mean, it's, you know, it's a tabletop, but it's not completely floppy. It has the smallest amount of thickness, but, you know, nothing puffy. And it makes life so much easier because you've ironed it on. You don't have to then pin it to keep it in place whilst you quilt it. And so, yeah, so that was my trial with that, which I really enjoyed. And then I had a bit of a rush and I did a March one, because for me, March is all about the daffodils. And so I've just done a very simple, I don't know what you can see if I'm saying. So I literally just got this piece of fabric and put some batik on the back, on the sides. But this one, I haven't backed at all. I've literally ironed on the fusible interfacing. As I said, I will write it down properly, it's named below. And I've literally just turned the hem over, or turned it over to hem it, and done a long, yeah, I did this by hand, just running stitch. You can probably see it there and there to keep it down. And I mean, it's a table topper. It's going to be flat. If it gets spilt on, it's nice and easy to wash. So yeah, I was quite pleased with that actually, and I think that's probably the route I will go with the other ones, although I might put a backing on it. I didn't put a backing on this just because I really had run out of time, and I just thought I'd give it a try and see what it was like. But I might put a backing on it. Yeah. So those are some table toppers. Yeah, and that was basically what got me, that was what diverted me from my original 4 quilts, my Alice in Wonderland quilt and table toppers. Plus, where my sewing machine table and cutting table goes, or lives in the lounge, is actually where the Christmas tree lives over Christmas time. So I have about 3 or 4 weeks when that all goes away anyway. So I can't do anything then. Well, I could have done a bit of hand sewing, but I didn't. So future, where I'm on to, future plans and purchases. So the biggest future plan, I had a mad moment. Rush of blood to the head. I think I've said it numerous times before, love Laundry Basket Quilts, love Adita Sitter, love all her fabrics, love all her designs. I have a couple of her books. I've made a couple of the quilts out of the books. They're absolutely fantastic. As long as you do exactly as she says, they come together perfectly. And I've always wondered about her block of the months and, you know, mystery quilts and things. And I'm not a huge fan of mystery things. But she did keep on talking about this Lady Tulip quilt, which is a block of the month. I was really quite tempted, and I was looking at it, and she has the option where you can either buy the fabric and cut it yourself, or you can get these laser cut fabric pieces. And when I first saw those a couple of years ago, when she started talking about them a couple of years ago, I was thinking, well, really takes most of the quilting out of quilting, doesn't it? If the fabric's already pre-cut for you. Not to be judgmental, you know, each to their own, crack on and get on with it. But I was a bit like, okay. I wonder if that will take off or not. Well, obviously it has taken off because she still continues to do it. And when I signed up for this Lady Tulip block, I sort of thought, well, do I want to buy the fabric and cut it myself, or do I want the laser cut pieces? And I couldn't decide, because part of my brain was saying, well, if you get the fabric and you cut it carefully, you'll have some leftover scraps of Laundry Basket Quilt fabric. And then the other side of my brain was going, yes, but you're not going to cut it carefully. You will get it wrong, and then you're going to be short of fabric, and you're going to have a hell's own job of trying to find the fabric to finish the quilt off with. And I thought, well, it'll come down to price then. I'm going to look to see what the difference in price is of having this shipped monthly, either as full fabric or lace cut pieces. And there was no difference in the price whatsoever. And I thought, you know, I'm going to give it a go. So I went for the laser cut pieces. And they're fantastic. Excuse me, now this has arrived. I haven't started yet. I'm quite determined to get my Etoile Rouge quilt finished first, and then I can sort of concentrate on this one. But these are, so you get 3 blocks per month, and you're making 3 of each block, so you 9 finished blocks in total. Those are the first 3 blocks. And this is how it all comes packaged. And so that's block 1, all your little pre-cut pieces. And aren't they square? They're fabulous. Block 2, all my pre-cut pieces of fabric. And block 3. There's no wonky squares here. They're all precision cut. Now obviously, when I sort of put on to Instagram that I signed up for this, someone said, oh, you know, I wonder about the tax. And I wondered about it as well. I didn't wonder about it until I'd signed up for it. And then I thought, oh gosh. I wasn't charged any tax for this. Now, when this came through, I couldn't believe this. This was no heavier than a Christmas card. It literally came a very small envelope, well packaged, absolutely fine, but no heavier than a Christmas card. And I didn't get taxed for it. Now, I know everyone says there's set rules and regulations, and that's absolutely fine. I seem to find it's very hit and miss. Sometimes I get charged, sometimes I don't. So I'm going to look at it that every month I don't get charged is a bonus. Because I was thinking, well, if I get charged a hideous amount, I'm just going to have to cancel it and say, I'm sorry, I can't, you know. But, you know, I haven't been charged anything. So that's an exciting plan in the background to start once I finished my Etoile Rouge. And then the other purchases I have made fabric purchases, obviously. The other purchases I have made, I'm going to show you all the books that I've bought, because I'm not sure, I mean, people must know that this company exists because, you know, they do well, but I never really hear people talking about them. And we're very lucky here. We have a quilt company, or Grosvenor Quilt Shows, and they seem to just sort of almost get a line down beside us up and down the country where they put shows. So we went to a show in November time, went to one in January, went to one in March, going to one in May. They're all easily enough reachable for a day trip out. And that tends to be where I buy most of my fabric and most of my stuff, because you go to the show with ideas and plans and you can get it all together. Anyway, so there's one place in particular I always buy books from when I go to. And the first book I bought was The Civil War Remembered. I'm liking my Civil War fabrics. Can I? Lord, excuse me. So I try and show this without, not that you're going to be able to get anything from it, but there we go. So you've got things like that one. This one. Now I have to say I'm not a pink fan. Not a pink fan. I'll do a different background, but you know, there's all these sorts of things, all different patterns. I quite like that pattern. Which one is that called? This one. One Flag, I think it's called, possibly. But anyway, so you've got that sort of pattern. Anyway, so it's just a book, 19 quilts using reproduction fabrics. So that was the first one I bought. The second one I bought, which I actually bought the last show I went to, is another Kim Deal Simple Whatnots, a batch of satisfyingly scrappy little quilts. Now, I follow this lady on Instagram, and I think she's just released Simple Whatnots 3. Love this book. We'll be getting the other books in due course. These are all small quilts. Some are wool applique. This is one of my favourite ones. Well, I like them all. Actually, I love them all. Things like this. My plan, well, initially my plan was, well, I could just make a big scrappy quilt of all the smaller quilts, but they actually come out at different sizes. So whether I sort of sit down and really work out which ones will fit how or where, or just make an entire quilt, that's one block, and whether you do 4 blocks across or 5 blocks across and 7 down or however, just sort of make them, whether you probably wouldn't need such a big border, but just make it a bigger quilt. What was my favourite? That's one of my favourite ones. Oh, and this one. Love this. That sort of checkerboard. Now that I think would be reasonably easy to turn into a larger quilt. So yes, I mean, you know, all these plans, because we're all invincible, aren't we? Love this, although I'm not going to be turning this into a quilt. That would be a lovely, what's it called? French pennies. Sorry, twisting the book away from you. There. French pennies. Now that's wool applique and French knots. That would be quite cool for a coaster or table topper. You never have too many table toppers. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so all those sorts of things, they're all small quilts. So whether I just, because I'm not a huge one for wall hangings of small things like that. I suppose I could do, the other thing I did think they'd make quite nice project bags, fronts for project bags. Or you could practice them, use the practice for a front of a project bag, and then turn it into a bigger quilt when you know what you're doing. So those were quite exciting purchases. And then the final purchase I wanted to show people is the Dear Jane quilt book. Now, I'm going to be quite honest, I seriously doubt I'm ever going to make this. For me, this is a bit of a coffee table book, and it's just one of those sorts of books. I find it interesting, I like to read it, find out what it's all about, blah, blah, blah. And I've had various friends within the quilting group that have made it, and they're all absolutely stunning. And then I was watching Rebecca of Hedgerow Stitching, and she was saying how she'd eventually managed to get her hands on on this book, and how hard it was to come by. I was thinking, is it? Okay. Thinking, I'm sure I've seen that quite frequently at shows. And then it was Somi Sarah was also saying how she had purchased this book, and I think she started hers. she'd purchased this book and, you know, how hard it was to come by. I was thinking, is it really? I'm not sure it is. And I thought, well, I'm not going to say anything in case I don't want to send everyone down a rabbit hole to find that I was wrong. And I wanted to make sure I got one in my grubby little hands before everyone else bought them up. But I went to one of the shows, I think it was probably last October time, and there's a shop called Kaleidoscope. I'll show you the thing on the back of there. Now, and they also have a website, www.kalquilts.com. And they're up in Scotland, and when you go to the shows, they tend to take up an entire row. So one half of it is all their fabrics, they have lots of bolts and fat quarters, and the other half of it is books. Books galore. So I turned up in October at one of the shows. I thought, I wonder if they've got a Dear Jane quilt book. You know, see how odd. There was about 10 of these sitting on their shelves, and yeah, they're, again, another quilt show a couple of months ago. They were still fully stocked with them. So they seem to be able to get their hands on them. So if you are looking for this book, do not pay ridiculous prices that are no doubt being charged on eBay for secondhand books. Go to www.kalquilts.com. But also, I know we have So Hot, which does all like the Lori Holt fat quarter shop, what have you. But these book people, Kaleidoscope, you want Lori Holt, oh my, if you want Lori Holt books, they have them all. They have the full range. They have all of Laundry Basket Quilt books. They have all of the Kim Deal books. They have hundreds of, you know, different variations on Civil War books, on autumn books, on just everything. I've bought applique books, embroidery books from them. I mean, it's a huge stall, and every time I go with my friends and I say, well, I'll see you in half an hour because I'm going to go and look at the books, and I always buy a book from them. So I will link them below as well, because yes, yeah. So if you're looking, as I said, sorry, part of this little talk, do not overpay for this. It is readily available from this shop that I will link below. And then finally, I received some happy mail, which was very exciting. So over Christmas time, I did some Christmas giveaways, and it was, sorry, I know her, but I'm just going to make sure that I remember all the information. And Darlene of Darlene Dion Designs, who has a floss tube under that name, won one of the giveaways. Now, Darlene is a quilt pattern designer, and she has just recently released her first cross-stitch patterns as well. And completely out of the blue, very kindly, as a thank you for the giveaway that I'd sent to her, she sent me this table runner, or yeah, Mrs. Cratchit's Christmas runner. As you can see there, Darlene Dion Designs. So that's, well, she is Darlene. Darlene Dion Designs is the floss tube name, and I think it's also her store name. So yes, so looking forward to making that for Christmas. Very, very kind of her. She really didn't need to do it, but it was always lovely to receive. So thank you very much, Darlene, if you're watching this. And a lovely card. So pretty. Now that's Debbie Mum. Apparently that card comes from. How cute is that? So yes, so another quilty pattern to add to my stock. I think that is it now. I think I've waffled for long enough. I'm sorry, it's been a bit random, jumpy back and forth. Oh no, I haven't quite finished, sorry. Hang on there. Keep going, we're nearly at the end, nearly at the end. I went to a charity shop, local charity shop, and I picked up 1,000 great quilt blocks. I think this cost me £3.50, and it just has, well, 1,000 different quilt block patterns, and it's just, you get the dimensions down there for what you need to cut out, and then it's obviously colour coded, and these are, oh no, they're all different sizes. So you've got 9-inch, 12-inch, 8.5-inch. So yeah, they all come out different sizes. So you can make up your own medallion quilt or one block quilt out of these. So one of these sorts of things. You can never have too many block options. And you've even got corner templates. Yep. That really is it now. I promise. I think we're finished. So anyway, I was apologising for how rambly this was and how disjointed this was. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've liked one or some of the projects that I'm undertaking or going to start to undertake. Give me an opinion on my hatched and patched, restart, or just add some fabric. I suppose I could add a different coloured strip and do it each time, not on a wonky one, not make it wonky every time, but and then almost have it as a dividing, possibly. So give me an opinion on that. Thank you very much for watching. I hope to be back slightly more, I was about to say slightly more quicker, but no, that's not proper English. I hope to be back soon. See you later, take care, bye.